Hello, everyone. Dante, are you going to say anything?
So let's all give a warm welcome to Ayya Soma, one of our resident monastics and co-founder of this organization. So Ayya Soma is going to be sharing some live meditation with us, and two people are expressing excitement that you're the person giving the talk tonight. Com says good evening. Vortex says yay.
That's Andrew. Andrew K.
Hello, Andy. Yudi says she's looking forward to the talk.
That's a lot of peer pressure.
I prefer peer encouragement. Kevin says he's also looking forward to the talk. Adriana says hello. I second that. Yay. Dreamy Pisces says hey, yeah. Okay, hello everyone. I'm so happy you're joining us. And I'm happy that you're all as delighted as I am that Ayya Soma is going to be sharing Dhamma this evening. Adriana says, Ayya, you're gonna kill it. That's a good thing, by the way, if you're not familiar with English slang. Junie says, awesome. Yudi says, you're a natural. Claudia says, good evening. Okay, so lots of encouragement.
Okay, now we can get all of these expectations, pick them up, and let them go. The first practice of renunciation of the evening. It's going to be a terrible talk, and it's okay.
Hello, Belinda. Yes, welcome everyone. So I'll now hand it over to Ayya Soma, and we can do some meditation together.
Right, thank you, Bantem, and thank you all for joining us tonight. It's been great meeting with you all since this disaster has happened. So how about we start with a bit of meditation practice as usual, so we can take a comfortable position, upright position, and close your eyes if that feels more comfortable for you, or keep them a little bit open if you feel slightly drowsy or tired from the day. And take a few moments to just check on your body from the tip of the head to the tip of the toes. And just relax. Relax your forehead. Relax your jaw. Relax your shoulders. Relax your belly. Relax your arms, your legs. Relax your breath. And bring up a warm wish in the mind. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. Trying to really mean it. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. Expanding this warm wish to all our family and loved ones. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be safe. remembering to keep a smile on your face. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Expanding this warm wish to all our fellow practitioners. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Everyone in the room with us and everyone watching on the screen. May we all be happy, may we all be safe, may we all be healthy. Expanding this loving, warm wish to all the healthcare workers and the doctors. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Expanding this wish to all the people who are suffering because of the virus. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. this is a global disaster, we realize we're all experiencing suffering in the same way. And we wish for each single being in the world to be free from suffering. May we all be happy. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be well.
Okay, thank you, Ayya, for leading us in meditation. And hello to a few more people joining in. So hello, Tin Kwang. Is that the Bhikshuni you mentioned the other day? Tin Kwang?
Maybe.
Hello, Tin Kwang. Hello, Marielle, Catalina, Maria, and Michael McDermott. Welcome, all of you, for joining in. So at this time, Ayya Soma will speak some words of Dhamma. So please listen attentively. Adriana says, thank you, that was beautiful. Jessica Calder says she's feeling happy to be joining in, and she loves the title. So again, at this time, we'll invite Ayya Soma to speak about the Dhamma. And feel free to type in any questions, and she'll answer your questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante, and thank you all for still being online or for joining in, if you just joined in. So the topic today is JOMO, the joy of missing out, which is the opposite of what we usually here, which is FOMO, the fear of missing out. So a lot of times, actually, at least at Buddhist Insights, we emphasize a lot. Bhante has emphasized this a lot in the past couple of days. The discussion on renunciation, so how it's a cardinal element of Buddhist practice and how it's a foundation for developing pretty much anything in the Noble Eightfold Path. So when we talk about joy of missing out, I feel like there is, aside from it being a cute, like little catchy name, I think at the very beginning of our Buddhist practice, we have an idea, we have a sort of intellectual idea that renunciation, this practice can bring some sort of peacefulness, as it's exemplified, by the Google images of monk meditating on the tip of the mountain. You see, the monk smiling, and they're like, oh yes, definitely there is something there that I would like to give me some of that. But at the same time, we're kind of like, but I have all these things. And they feel kind of comfortable. So we're a little bit skeptical. We have a little bit of lack of faith of, is this renunciation thing really, really a good thing to do? If I have 10 and I give 9 to someone else, or if I even give all 10 to someone else, am I not with -9 or -10? So there's always the mind veers towards lacking of something rather than acquiring something else. And I would like to actually read a part of this sutta that I find really beautiful in the Anguttara Nikaya, where both the Buddha and the lay followers are keeping it real. There's so let me just read it. So there's a group of lay people go to Ananda, and they say, Bhante Ananda, we laymen enjoy sensual pleasures, delight in sensual pleasures. They take delight in sensual pleasures and rejoice in sensual pleasures. Renunciation seems like a precipice to us. I have heard that in this Dhamma and discipline, there are very young bhikkhus whose minds launch out upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it, seeing it as peaceful. Renunciation, Bhante, is the dividing line between the multitude and the bhikkhus in this Dhamma and discipline. So the lay people are keeping it real. They're like, sounds great, but really, this is kind of like the only sort of form that we've had where we're enjoying life. So that looks in theory like a good thing, but is it really like that? So then Bhante brings this question up to the Buddha, and the Buddha talks, the Buddha says, so it is, Ananda, so it is, Ananda. And he talks about himself now before becoming a fully enlightened being. And he says, before my enlightenment, when I was just a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me too. Good is renunciation, good is solitude, yet my mind did not launch out upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it. So I saw it as peaceful. It occurred to me, why is it that my mind does not launch out upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it? So I see it as peaceful. Then it occurred to me, I have not seen the danger in sensual pleasures and have not cultivated that insight. I have not achieved the benefit in renunciation and have not pursued it. Therefore, my mind does not launch out upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it, though I see it as peaceful. So what I really liked about this is how, first of all, the Buddha keeps it real, that he was unenlightened, just like us, and he had a similar experience. But then as he started looking at his mind, he understood what the problem was here. And the problem was that the gratification was clear, We all know that there is something enjoyable in sensual pleasures. Otherwise, we wouldn't be stocking up on experiences, and we wouldn't be stocking up on objects. So we wouldn't be stocking up on anything in the domain of sensual pleasure. But oftentimes, if not all the time, we do not see the danger in sensual pleasures. And even when we see the danger in sensual pleasures, we do not cultivate the insight. Hence, we do not achieve the benefit of renunciation and do not pursue it. So I feel like right now, for a lot of us, well, for us actually in this monastery, nothing much has changed in terms of daily life. If anything, actually, what has changed is that we are online. We're a little bit busier than we used to be before, which is kind of like a little surreal for certain respects. We're busier in a different way. But for the most, I would say probably most monasteries, it's kind of like social distance before the before the virus, a social distance after the virus. But for a lot of you, I know it's not a sort of decision that you have made deliberately, but it's something that has been imposed to you. So it's no different actually than when people are put into prison. That would be the biggest difference, of course, aside from the logistics of being in a prison, where Ajahn Brahm, actually, he was telling us he does a lot of programs with prisons in Australia. So apparently at a certain point he went to give a talk there to the prisoners, and they were asking him about, the schedule in the monastery, and he was like, yeah, like we wake up at 3 a.m. And they were like, whoa, you wake up at 3 a.m.? That's horrible. It's like, yeah, we don't watch any TV, or like we don't have any entertainment. And they're like, whoa, that is terrible. Like, we don't eat after noon. And I'm like, oh my God. Why are you doing that to yourself? It's actually much better to be here in prison. So the main difference was that fundamentally monastics choose, to be deprived of all these sort of elements, and the prisoners had not. So why do we take all these precepts? Maybe that's useful to understand why we take precepts in Buddhism to begin with. And it's very different than, for example, in other religious traditions, at least that I'm aware of, where, for example, in Catholicism, the Ten Commandments are they have a strong moral connotation. In Buddhism, there is part of that. There is definitely, in some of the precepts, there is a moral connotation. So, for example, we do not kill in order to not harm ourselves and others. But then, for example, eating after noon is a precept that is not necessarily a moral thing. Nobody gets hurt if you have dinner. It's not something that is wrong in and of itself. So why do we take that? Or why do we renounce a lot of the sort of entertainment that in lay life we indulge in? So we take it as trainings, opportunities for trainings, for training the mind, opportunities to create new habits. In fact, one of like the translations that I really love about Sila, the translations that I love of Sila is not morality per se, but actually habits. So developing, when I heard that translation, actually, it was when I understood the point of taking precepts and why I was like, oh yeah, give me more. This is pretty great. It revolutionized my mind. So we take these precepts in order to, once again, create the external conditions in order to see the mind, watch the mind, and replace old habits with new habits. And in the process, see what the problem is. Why do we behave in a certain way? Why are we so attached to certain things? And why do we think certain elements of our experience are fruit of so much joy when in reality they're not? So we start dismantling our experience and understanding really what our experience is, and then seeing a way out, an alternative to what we think is happiness, an alternative that actually is a truer, more solid, more reliable happiness. So right now, when we are in this sort of situation of social distancing, there is probably a lot of suffering happening. But the suffering should be really, should be acknowledged, of course, but understood it as what it is. So it's deprivation, once again, as the as the lay people were saying to the Buddha or to Bhantyananda in the sutta, in the extract of the sutta that we just read. It's just because our mind is wired to think that happiness is outside of these walls. Happiness is going to the supermarket to shop continuously, getting whatever we want in the moment that we want. It's hanging out with people and going to the movies or doing whatever kind of activities that we do over and over again. So all of that stimulation that is outside, all of a sudden we have been deprived from it, and it has not been a willful deprivation like we do when we go to monasteries or when we go on retreats, but it is a condition that we're currently experiencing. So we acknowledge the suffering, but at the same time we have the Dharma. So it's a great opportunity to actually see we are clearly aware of the gratification of all the different experiences that we have in terms of sensual pleasures, and that now we're deprived of. So clearly the gratification is there. We're clearly also aware of the danger. So for example, the danger now, since we don't have any of these sensual pleasures currently easily available, then we see the danger of it. It's clearly not reliable. It's impermanent. And it's not fundamentally something that we want to base our happiness on. Otherwise, it will always be a very shaky happiness. And we have the opportunity to see the way out, the escape from this sensual pleasure. We have the opportunity to really experientially delve into the Dharma, delve deeply into it. So I'll share, actually before sharing, I was thinking there's a lot of, about the staying home, there's a lot of like kind of feeling sorry for ourselves a lot of times, like we can't do this and we can't do that. But there's very little thinking a lot of the times of how staying home actually benefits others. So instead of thinking, I have to be here at home because if I go out, I might get infected, rather thinking, actually, I'm infected already. And if I go out, I might infect so many different people. And even if I'm not infected, the fact that I'm actually staying home, I'm benefiting others because I'm leading by example. What a beautiful gift to the world. Incredible. We don't have to do anything. Actually, it's the easiest way to practice compassion and caring for others. Incredible. What a gift that we now have for practice to really develop a sense of caring. At the same time, really having so much time to think how we can benefit people beyond that. So really nourishing and pushing our compassion and saying, what are the things that people need right now? in New York City, if we live in New York City, or wherever we are in the world, in our immediate communities. What are there elderly people next door to me? Can I bake bread, and if I have flour, and bring it to my neighbors? Can I bring them some shopping, some groceries? We had a few people leaving groceries at the entrance, so that there was no communication. Today we had beautiful Dana pizza that was delivered together with some vegetables from a neighbors. So thank you, Michael and Kinsey, for your incredible generosity. So developing these immediate this generosity and kindness and carefulness towards our immediate neighbors, but also thinking, I was very inspired actually by Carolina, one of our Dharma friends who knows how to sew, and she's been sewing all these masks since there are very few supplies, and there have been a lot of calls for anyone who knows how to sew to sew masks. So this is what she's been doing most of her time. What an incredible, beautiful way to practice compassion. So there's tons of ways, tons of opportunities in which we can cultivate wholesome mind states in this way, in this time. But it has to come from the acknowledgement that we are, not the acknowledgement, but the wish, the realization that we're doing this for others rather than us. When we start thinking that this is for us, and we become very afraid, and we become very scary, and a lot of unwholesome qualities start generating in the mind. And this is on a small scale, but also at a larger, bigger scale. One of the biggest issues in Italy, why the problem has escalated so much, was because a lot of medical supplies didn't even make it to Italy. They were hoarded by different people, different institutions on the way there in different countries, because the people were like, well, it's pretty bad there, but it might get pretty bad here too. So let me stock up on these resources. So it ended up that in the country where I come from, there are very, very, very few medical supplies, and it has been very difficult to get pretty much anything, even though they have been purchased already. So always thinking, realizing that whenever we cultivate sort of self-obsessed mind, we affect ourselves, we affect our instant psychology, but we also affect the larger society. And whenever, on the other hand, on the flip side, we think, how can I help others? The light comes from in the mind, and also affects the larger society as well. So always thinking how all our practice is ultimately for the benefit of ourselves and others. There's no distinction. It's just like washing your hands. We're doing a lot of washing hands these days, so you need both hands. But coming back to the precepts, actually, I wanted to share one of the realizations that I had, which got me to, stock up on the precepts and get more and more precepts, and how they're such beautiful instruments for us to look at our minds and understand what the problem is, and understand both the gratification, the danger, and then see the escape. So one of the actually precepts that I was talking about earlier that are not necessarily moral precepts are the precept of not eating after noon. So back at the Rockaway Summer House, so the monastery and retreat center that existed before Empty Cloud, where we currently are at in Rockaway Beach, at a certain point we had so much food growing in the backyard, so we started doing dinners for the neighbors, and we invited members of the sangha, the lay sangha actually, to come and cook for the neighbors. But we're all on the 8 precepts, except for the neighbors, of course. So then we had some great dinners, like the Jamaican dinner, the Chinese dinner, the Italian dinner made by myself. And so Nicole, who is this lovely Jamaican lady that some of you know, she came and she came in the morning, I still remember, and she cooked the whole day. And there were these incredible smells throughout the building. I was just craving for the entire day. And then it comes to dinner time, and there is this beautiful presentation of the food, and then all the neighbors come. And I'm sitting with them talking, and they're all asking me, "Oh, why are you not eating?" And I'm explaining that I'm following, the precepts of not eating after noon. And the entire time for me, it was awful because I was just looking at them eating this delicious food and having all these awful sensations of envy and oh, I wish I could have this food too. I know it's delicious. I had Nicole's food before. And it was when she cooked for an hour, not for 8 hours. So this must be even more delicious than the normal food that she has. All this dukkha, this suffering that made me completely not present in the experience, and just actually have a really awful experience altogether. And then Nicole, was really kind. So she had put some food aside. And the day after, I remember I ate it before noon. And I was like, oh, I mean, it's great, but it's really not that great. So don't get me wrong. It was not that it was not, it was pretty great. But because I had built this whole story in my mind for almost 24 hours, of course it could not ever meet my imagination. There's nothing that can meet your imagination. And I had the same experience with the Chinese dinner. It was atrocious, even worse. I was like, oh, she's making all those, how do you call them? The dumplings all by hand, hours and hours. And I was like, oh, I never had real Chinese food made by hand. I only had atrocious, same exact thing, super dukkha. Then it came my turn to make the Italian dinner. And it was very interesting because in my culture, we have a big emphasis on sharing food. So we're happier to share food than we are to eat it ourselves when we make it. So I remember that my experience all of a sudden shifted entirely. And, the kind of Italian grandmother that lives inside of me came out, and I was like, oh, yes, oh, you're liking this food. Oh, yeah, you're enjoying it. Oh, yeah, great. I'm so happy that you're really liking this food. And I remember looking at my mind and going, wow, there is no trace of suffering. My mind is actually full of mudita, of rejoicing in other people's happiness. The fact that they're having a pleasant experience with their vegan eggplant parmigiana, that they're really enjoying it. And I don't need to have the eggplant parmigiana in order to be happy. Actually, I'm a lot happier by seeing their happiness, by feeding from their happiness. So that was the first time where I had a glimpse of the escape, of how that happiness was supreme, was extremely superior to any kind of experience I ever had with food. And bear in mind that we're in Italy, I'm Italian, we're pretty obsessed with food. So it's kind of like our unofficial religion, or maybe it is official, I don't know. So we get pretty obsessed, and we have a lot of sensual pleasure, a lot of attachment with food. And it was always something that had played a big, strong part in my life up until that day. Because up until that day, actually, I was able to practice the 8 precepts without any problem, without any difficulty. Up until then, it had been increasingly challenging. I was always hungry, and we have a few allowables in the evening in the Theravada tradition that we follow. And I hated all the allowables just because they were allowed. I just wanted everything but the allowables. So it had been so difficult for me to practice in that way up until then. And then it was so easy to actually even be around people who were having dinner. Because instead of focusing my mind on what I didn't have or what I wanted, on craving whatever experience other people were having, I would just cultivate natural mudita. I would do it intentionally. So I do it all the time. Actually, now it's one of my favorite practices to go and spend time with people who are having dinner. So great. I can practice mudita without even trying. Beautiful, great, lovely experience. And so this is a way in which you are practicing renunciation, and you're practicing really the joy of missing out. That was where actually I think JOMO kind of started, or saying at the monastery. I was like, oh yes, this is very joyful. This is very beautiful. I like to practice this way. So this is when all of a sudden we stop thinking of precepts as something, or as impediments, as something that are hard to bear, but as opportunities for practice that give us the opportunity to really see what the Buddha is talking about, the way out of suffering. And there was, one thing that Bhante actually said, Bhante Suttazo said a few years ago that really made an impact in my mind, which was that, a lot of times we think that the joy that we get from, getting an object. So if I really want this thing and I get it, we think that the joy comes from receiving the object, acquiring the object. But in reality, what happens is that as soon as we receive the object, we let go of the desire of the object. And that is where the true happiness is. So it's the fact that we let go of that craving. But that's also why it's not reliable, because then we're constantly looking at another object. If it were truly that the object, how many times have we thought, oh yes, if I could only like have that whatever dress, or if I could only watch that movie, or if I could only like go out with that person who looks so cool, or if I could only like be accepted in that college, or if I could only have that job. I think we've done it since the day we had memory. If only, if only, if only. I think we've accumulated enough onlys to actually realize that there's no end to the onlys. The only lasts very short amount of time, and then you're okay. What's next? What's next? So that's where the true happiness comes from: letting go, from going, okay, well, if I get that or I don't get that, it's fine. So you can enjoy it when you have it, and you can enjoy it when you don't have it. Pretty great, isn't it? So I had also taken some quotes that I wanted to end up with. There are a few quotes always from the Buddha, who says a lot cooler, lot more interesting things than I have to say. Which one should I pick? The Dhammapada, verses 290. If by giving up a lesser happiness one could experience greater happiness, a wise person would renounce the lesser to behold the greater. So fundamentally, it is wisdom that enables letting go of a lesser happiness in pursuit of a happiness which is greater. So as we cultivate with our practice an understanding of our experience, then the demarcation between these two happiness, the happiness that we're kind of accustomed to, the happiness, sensual pleasure happiness, and the more sublime happiness becomes more and more demarcated. And the more wisdom we develop, the more we pick the higher happiness. And the Buddha also has very clear instructions for lay people, because I'm saying this just because the usual thing that lay people like to say is, oh, well, but I'm not a monastic, so, well, I understand all this renunciation, but you're a monastic, so you decided to renounce, etc., blah, 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 blah. All these excuses. But fundamentally, actually, the Buddha always talks to practitioners. But in this particular sutta, in Samyutta Nikaya, verses 395, the Buddha says, in particular to lay people, so a clear way to practice renunciation. So he says, a lay follower is accomplished in generosity by dwelling at home with a mind devoid of stinginess, and by being freely generous, open-handed, delighting in renunciation, delighting in renunciation, just in case. Devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. And you can see this, actually, it's so remarkable how this is embedded in pretty much any Asian Buddhist culture that I've had the pleasure to interact with. When we were recently in Thailand, and it's incredible how all the lay people practice exactly in this way. And it's such a beautiful, delightful way of being, delightful state. So I think I've said what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ayya Soma, for your words of Dhamma. And at this time, to all those who are joining in, please feel free to write your questions, and I'll read out your questions for Ayya to answer. First off, we have from Michael McDermott. He says, ciao from Monica and I. Do you have any tips on balancing renunciation and gratitude for what we have in our lives? Grazie mille.
Balance between renunciation and what we have in our life.
Gratitude.
Yeah. The reason why I have a difficulty answering this question is because I don't see why you necessarily need to balance it. Like, it feels like wanting to balance it has to come from a sort of place of unbalance. But the Buddha always says that actually the more you give, the more you get, so to speak. He doesn't say it quite like that, but but fundamentally, that has also been an experience actually that we've had here at BI, since we are a very poor organization, actually, at Buddhist Insights, despite the fancy dwelling these days. But actually, the fancy dwelling has been the result of a lot of giving. So whenever the least we had, the more we were giving. Actually, the example of the dinners, the reason why we started the dinners was because we had no money to pay the rent at a certain point. So we were like, well, I think we should give more then. So then you come to a sort of balance in the way that right now we're very grateful that this place exists, but we have cultivated a mind of, it's not like this place is mine, this place is anyone's, but rather it's, oh, we're happy that this place exists, that people have wanted to create the conditions for this place to exist, and at the same time, how can we help others? What can we give to others? So that's why I'm saying that it doesn't come from a place of imbalance. It was not that we started with oh, I have all these things and I need to protect them, but at the same time I should be giving things to others, but rather it's it's always coming from the place of how can we help others around us. And then, now we have a few things and we're like, okay, well, that's great. But are they beneficial? Are they beneficial for people? And if they're beneficial for people who are, besides Bhante Sudhaza and myself who founded this organization, if they're beneficial for many people, then it's great. The balance happens automatically. So I don't know if I answered the question, but those are my thoughts.
So next, Proto Dhamma asks, can you please explain the Pali term asada? How is asada different from nandi? And are they both inherently harmful?
That is a question for Bhante Sudhaza, because he's the scholar. I'm learning.
So asada is usually translated gratification, and nandi is usually translated delight. But since I'm not the one giving the talk, that's all you're getting for now.
No, come on, elaborate.
So you can ask your question again next time that I'm giving one of the talks.
Ooh.
So Proto Dhamma, make sure to log in next time I'm talking and you can ask your question then. So Monica posted something in emoji script. So the yummy emoji next to the pasta emoji. So I'm learning how to read Chinese, but emoji script is still a little confusing to me sometimes, even though there's a lot of similarities. So both of them use visual characters. So I think she's saying that she likes eating pasta, but I'm not positive.
I agree. Pasta is very good.
Okay.
But sharing pasta is even better.
There you go. So Yudi Tsai says, rules in the Vinaya are overwhelmingly strict. Is this natural? Times have changed from 500 BC. Why are monastics attached to such codes of discipline? The Buddha spoke about the middle way.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your question. I would say that in theory, a lot of things are, unpractical. But until you actually practice them, you don't really understand the value of it. So, for example, not handling money can sound like something, quite the opposite of modern, quite unpractical, quite frightening too, quite scary. And so I won't deny that at the very beginning, I was like, really? Do we actually need to not handle money? We're also running an organization, like whatever. It's like 2019, almost 2020, 2016, whenever we started this organization. I don't remember, 2016. But when I ordained, one has to actually, before taking any precepts, one needs to be very, very humble, and give it a shot, give it a try. So that's also how we cultivate faith. We go, okay, well, I acknowledge I'm unenlightened, and however I've dealt with things so far hasn't brought to many happy results, since my mind is still a mess. So how about I try something new? So personally, when I encountered Buddhism, since it's been tested by people for 2,500 years, I was like, okay, I guess, there's some good results out of this practice for 2,500 years. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll be humble enough to give it a shot and see for myself. Is this beneficial or is this not beneficial? So when I ordained, I stopped handling money. And at the very beginning, it was extremely scary. I went to California, I remember at a certain point. In New York, it was kind of doable. Then at a certain point, I had to travel. I went to California and I was so scared. And I remember going to Bhante and going like, how am I going to go to that monastery? I have no money. I don't know anyone in California. Like, are you sure? Then this is actually blah, 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 blah. A lot of anxiety. And the only thing that Bhante Sudhaza told me was, just have faith. And I was like, yeah, whatever, faith. Sounds like has it thoughts and prayers? What is it? The thing that politicians always say, with thoughts and prayers or something like that. And I was like, oh, again, it's not really practical. So I went anyway. I went to California with no money. And it was incredible how things just came into being. And when they didn't, it was also okay. So not handling money creates an opportunity for the monastic, for example, to practice generosity by allowing people to practice generosity. And it also allows the monastic to practice renunciation when people decide not to practice generosity. So it's always a win-win situation. It's always great. When I couldn't get somewhere, I would go like, okay, well, I guess I won't go there and I'll stay wherever I am. And it's not the end of the world. And when I would go somewhere, I would feel incredible gratitude towards the people that have decided to support me spontaneously. And at the same time, they would feel very happy to be able to support me in my quest towards awakening. And at the same time, it created actually also a sense of responsibility in me and going like, well, I am supported by all these people. I'd better practice well. I'd better be sure that I am worthy of this support. So incredible, incredible gifts, incredible realizations of the mind that wouldn't have been possible had I handled money. The other thing is that I've always been an independent woman, or I was very much attached to my idea, delusional idea, because we're all interdependent, as we all know. But we like to think that I don't need anyone in this world. I can pay my bills. I can do whatever take care of all my needs, etc., etc. So all my adult life, I was very attached to this idea of the independent woman. So all of a sudden, not being able to use money, kind of had to put me in the position to really look at this identity that I didn't even know existed. Really, it was very difficult for me to, at the very beginning, to accept anything or to even ask people that I needed something. Very, very difficult, very harmful for myself and for others. So what a gift of Dhamma, that just holding a precept that looks very antiquate on the surface has given me. Then it's up, to each monastic. There's so many different lineages and so many different traditions that practice in different ways. Obviously, it's been 2,500 years, so different lineages have adapted in different forms, and that's okay too, for the most part, unless people are not practicing in accordance to Dhamma. But I personally find it, very beautiful to practice in this way. And then if there are certain things that are completely unreasonable, there are some precepts that right now are not followed by even the strictest Vinaya follower monastics, just because they don't quite apply these days like they applied back in the day. So, like, for example, not riding in vehicles is a precept that nobody follows these days, because good luck going anywhere if you're not riding in vehicles, especially in this country where there's, aside from New York City, there is no public transit anywhere. So you're right in terms of the middle way, but at the same time, the middle way, we only experience and understand it while practicing. So it's good sometimes to go the extreme and then perhaps, get a little bit, do less, then start less, and then you do even less, if it makes sense.
Thank you. There's a series of positive remarks, thank yous and sadhus and keeping it reals and so on. Then Yulia asks, finding balance in a wired world is not easy. How to reject the pressure to do more, be more, and achieve more, even when it comes to a spiritual practice. How to center your life on what is truly important and letting go of the should and have to in life.
What did she say at the very beginning? In the wired world?
Finding balance in a wired world.
Wired.
I think she means like connected.
Okay. Well, once again, the news is practice. That's why it's called Buddhist practice. It's not called Buddhist pill. Buddhist overnight remedy. Today special only 99 cents. You get everything solved. You practice. So there is right view. So now you've cultivated an understanding of the path. And you're here. Here's the path. You're here. So just try and practice to get more and more in accordance towards what the Buddha says. So it's constantly watching your mind, constantly looking, analyzing, looking at your experience truly and deeply. So without pretending that you are feeling, thinking, or experiencing in a sort of according to your aspirations. A lot of times, getting back to the food example, like the dinner examples, when I was craving and having all that suffering for the Chinese food or the Jamaican food, there was also a side of my mind that was like, that's terrible. Why are you doing that? You should be, all spiritual and everything. You are running a Buddhist organization, for Buddha's sake. Bad spiritual practitioner, bad. So if I followed that voice, then I would pretend that that was not my experience. So I would go like, oh, yes, I would be like just a little bit British. Oh, yes, everything is fine. I don't need the Jamaican food, nor do I need the Chinese food. I'm totally okay right now. No, so that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is going, wow, yeah, like my mind is a mess. This is terrible. Okay, let me write it down. Mine is obsessed with Chinese food, Jamaican food, every type of food. I could care less if all my neighbors are starving, just as long as I have at least a mouthful of that food. Okay, this is a situation. So what do I do to fix the situation? So then you start practicing. And then as soon as I said, there was an experience that I had that was different. And then I was like, oh, wow, the mind is reacting in an entirely different way right now. So what is it that has changed? What am I doing right now? And I was like, oh, what is happening is that I'm rejoicing in other people's happiness. I'm practicing mudita. So then, after the analysis of my instinctive reactions to both scenarios, then I create a plan. And I'm like, okay, so in order to overcome the suffering, in order to retrain my mind, in order to create more wholesome habits, I need to water the mudita. I need to actively recreate the situation that happened during the Italian night when I was cooking. In every single moment, even when it's other people cooking. So it's no different than when we do sitting meditation and we practice metta. We actively, intentionally create metta in our mind, in our heart. And it's beautiful. It imbues all our senses, all our experience, right? So in the same way, we can do that through actions. So in the same way, we can imbue our mind with mudita in those circumstances and act based on mudita. So that's what we have to do. We have to be aware. That's why there's such an emphasis on mindfulness. That's being mindful in every single moment, but not just mindful, like mindful when we're sitting down in a very safe sort of space. Of course, that's where we train our mindfulness, but in every single moment during the day. So realizing, okay, right now, I have a foggy mind. I know I have a foggy mind. Right now, I know I have an irritable mind. I know I have an irritable mind. Right now, I know I have a mind of anger. Right now, I have, like being aware of every single thing that is arising. So we understand what the situation is, and then we can alter it.
So Tim and Sonia say thank you so much for the wonderful talk.
Congratulations for the baby. Good to see you.
Kevin is reminding people to donate. So thank you, Kevin, for reminding people for that.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yudit Sai says, thank you, Ayya. Andrew says, amazing talk and answers. Jessica Calder asks, speaking in layman terms, our human needs are fundamentally very limited, yet our desires are endless. Why do some of us find so much comfort in feeling like we are missing out or missing something?
I'm sorry, can you repeat this?
Our human needs are fundamentally very limited, yet our desires are endless. Why do some of us find so much comfort in feeling like we are missing out or missing something?
Well, in a nutshell, greed, hatred, and delusion. But fundamentally, yes. The reason why we have all these, the reason why you have acknowledged that we have all these endless desires is that right now you're paying attention to it, thanks to the Buddhist teachings. And a lot of these desires you start noticing that are completely bizarre. Like, where are they coming from? Some you can trace down, and like, well, pretty obsessed with food. Yeah, well, came from Italy. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But some other tendencies of mind, the more my practice deepens, the more I'm like, I have no idea where these tendencies of mind are coming. And that's when, actually, it's another sort of information that really helps actually building your faith in multiple lifetimes, where you understand that this can't be just something that you've cultivating in this lifetime. Also, because if you see small children, you see that, there's no one who has to teach them. Nobody had to teach my nephews how to be greedy, angry, and deluded. They knew that as soon as they were born. They didn't even have to learn how to speak, and they already knew how to be greedy, hateful, and deluded. So there's, once you start looking at your experience through multiple lifetimes, then you understand how all these, since samsara is without discoverable beginning, so of course we've had so many different shapes and forms of existence that we have developed endless cravings, endless delusion. And then, of course, there is the no different than anger, that the Buddha says that it has the honey tip with the poison root. Same time, the same way, we like to kind of like feel sorry for ourselves too. That's a big part also of when I used to be depressed, that there was definitely a kind of sweetness to it, of like going, oh, all these things that I want, but I can't have, but like, there's something sweet about feeling sorry for ourselves, and there's also something sweet about harming ourselves. So always looking at, where is the gratification here? Where is the danger? And most importantly, where is the escape? So the first two, a lot of times you can do it actually without the Buddhist teachings. So I had done it actually, I had a bit of awareness of my mind before encountering the Dhamma. But actually it was driving me crazy, because I was like, okay, so I understand what I'm doing. I understand, as the Buddha says, the gratification and the danger. It's like, what's next? So what is there? And that would make me extremely depressed. But now that I have the teachings of the escape, then that's a great, beautiful gift. That's why it's so precious to find the Dharma and practice the Dharma. Great opportunity. That's why it took me very little time to get into robes, because I was like, wow, I remember clearly how awful my life and my mind was without these teachings and without this practice. So I'd better practice now that I found it as much as I can. So I'm not suggesting that tomorrow you should ordain, although you're welcome to. Let us know if you'd like to. But just really practice, really take the opportunity to, to fully commit yourself to the Buddhist teachings, and see it for yourself. And the more you see the gratification, the danger, and the escape, the more then peace arise, the more faith arise, the more wholesome mind states arise, and your experience becomes significantly more pleasant.
Okay. Yulia says, thank you very much. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Kevin says, thank you, Ayya, for the excellent guided meditation and Dharma talk. Jessica says, thank you, Ayya, for the explanation and book recommendation. Lots of time to read right now. Matthew says, I struggle a lot overcoming habits based on fear. Fear that unless I save as much as possible, I won't be able to take care of myself in the future. It makes being comfortable with extensive monetary generosity difficult.
All right. The last part, he said it makes extensive.
It makes being comfortable with extensive monetary generosity difficult. In other words, it's hard to be comfortable giving money.
Oh, okay. Well, then that means you. Okay. So sorry, can you repeat it? I'm a little bit tired today, this evening.
So he says, I struggle a lot overcoming habits based on fear.
Habits based on fear.
Fear that unless I save as much as possible, I won't be able to take care of myself in the future. Okay.
Well, that for me is a little bit difficult to relate to because I've always been a bit of a punk. So in that way, I've always been concerned more with the present than with the future. Because it always seemed to me very bizarre to obsess about a future when I could just be killed, the day after. So when you think about it, especially in this time of pandemic. Yeah. Okay. English is not my first language. Disclaimer. So I think that pretty much every single person, or most people anyway, have had, they're slightly fearful, the kind of idea, oh, I have the virus, I can't breathe, I can't, maybe I have the fever. I've been having that a few days ago. I was having that experience, and it was great actually. I was like, okay, how can I take advantage of this fear? Let me imagine right now I am actually about to die. It was a great meditation practice, really great meditation experience. So recollection of our own death is one of the practices that the Buddha recommends to do every single day. But a lot of times it can become abstract. So because I had a bit of chest pain and I can't remember another symptom that I had read in the coronavirus symptoms. And so then I started creating the story in my head that I was there. Maybe it's true, maybe it's the last times that you'll see me. But besides the point, it was very powerful because by just looking and facing that fear, I was able to transcend it and be totally okay with it. So now I'm actually convinced I have this disease. So my convinced not in the oh, I have it, but more in I should practice like I have it. So I should practice thinking that I should protect others when interacting with me. And most importantly, I should be thinking that every day is the last day. Every moment is the last moment. Every second is the last second. Every in-breath is the last in-breath. So in the same way, you can think of that. You can kind of create a fictitious experience in your mind of not having any money right now. Not having any security. Now you've lost all your money. Deeply thinking and convincing yourself. And you'll see that a lot of fear will arise, and you start contemplating, becoming equanimous towards that fear. Going, okay, well, for the rest of my life, I will have zero money. It's okay. Ah, fear. No money, no money, no money. And then, okay, well, it's all right. I can survive. I'm still here and I have no money. Like thinking of it in that way. Like actually pretending that whatever it is that you're fearful is already happening. Then you're already prepared to face it. So you create this sort of strength of being capable of facing anything that arises. And then once you're strong, you've cultivated some strength, then you can practice giving. And actually, because your weakest point is money, I would suggest actually practicing with money. It can be also like 50 cents. What you can do is like 50 cents. How about I give 75 cents? Then you give 75 cents, and then after, maybe I give $1. And you can notice also how difficult it is. Difficult. But the more you practice, the more you overcome it. So this is actually in general something that we should always be mindful of also, and where are our hang-ups in terms of generosity. So if our hang-up in generosity is monetarily, then we should practice more giving monetarily. If our hang-ups are not being, not giving food, or not giving like time and effort to people, then we should focus on doing that. So always looking at our weakest point and trying to overcome our weakest point and becoming better and better and better, but also understanding our limits. So being gentle with ourselves and going, okay, well, I'm still very stingy and it's very difficult for me to overcome this. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. You can do better next time. It's fine. It's all right. Like just being kind and going, okay, well, I'm not the only person who has problems. I'm not the only person who has this fear of money. I'm not the only person who has this fear of whatever kind of fear, virus, or not being generous enough, or whatever problem that we have. We're not alone. We're all in this together. So we all have different shades of greed, hatred, and delusion. So we all like to think that our experience is unique, that our mind is unique, that whatever it is, it's unique, that we are these unique snowflakes, as Bhante likes to say. But if we keep on thinking that we are unique snowflakes, we're never going to be able to see the nature of snow. And that's what we're trying to do with Buddhist practice, to understand the nature of snow. So until we think, I am the only person who's experiencing this, the other people cannot understand because whatever, they have better wages, they have better job security, they have better this, and they have better that. No, it's not true. They might be experiencing things in a different way, different shape or form, but fundamentally it's all a different shade of greed, hatred, and delusion. So look at for what it is, be gentle with yourself, and practice. No excellence can be acquired without constant practice.
Okay, well, it looks like there's no more questions. So I think we'll go ahead and end for the evening. So please remember to keep joining in. So every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 7:30 p.m. you can join us for more Dhamma discussion and practice together. So hope to see all of you again tomorrow and in the coming days. And may you all be happy, healthy, and safe.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.